With asset prices going up and cryptocurrency prices also going up, a lot of people believe we're in the beginning of the bull market and we got away without a recession, meaning the recession is behind us. Now, no matter how many economists affirm that there's no recession, there is one single institution within the United States of America that decides if you're in a recession or not. And according to their indicators, a recession may be just around the corner. In today's video, I want to show to you guys what those indicators are and what they're telling us. So who decides if you're in a recession or not? That is the NBER, or the National Bureau of Economic Research. They are the official body that declares if you're in a recession or not within the United States of America. They are governed by a board of directors consisting of 51 members from leading North American research universities, economics professional organizations, and the business and labor communities. So when we look at their page, let's say here, business cycle dating, we have a graph on employment rate and recession since 1958. Now, when you look at the graph, I want you to pay attention that there are some gray columns on the graph, and those gray columns make sort of a small portion of the graph, and the rest between the graphs is the expansion of the economy. Now, the economy is, in most cases, in the natural state when it is expanding. What is the expansion of the economy? It is individuals looking for solutions that they can provide or business they can open. So, for instance, someone learns how to fix a car. They decide to open a mechanical garage. That is an expansion of the economy. Someone is engaging on a new enterprise, trying to find ways to provide service and to make money. Now, whenever those enterprises are being opened, people also make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, they have shut down their business because the investment was not well calculated or not well made. And then that brings the economy on a recession, which is marked by those gray columns. So you can see here, for instance, on 2008, you can see there is a gray column. You can also see a very tiny, thin gray column marking the COVID recession. And you can see that the COVID recession was very short-lived and yet was a recession. Now, what criteria do they use to determine if you're in a recession or not? Most economists and most people believe it is 2 quarters in a row of lower GDP. That is not true. That's just one indicator. For instance, on the case of COVID, there were no 2 quarters of recession, but the agency immediately announced a recession because they use other metrics, other indicators. And those indicators, or some of those indicators, is what I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. And we may see that maybe a recession may just be around the corner. We'll be looking at different graphs, and I want to look at them from the least alarming one to the most alarming one at the end. So, what are your thoughts on this one graph? This is the employment level from 1980s until now. What I want you to pay attention to is employment levels start to go sideways, and then we have the gray column, or this recession. Remember, the gray column means a recession. Then out of the recession, we see employment going up. And once again, here in 1990, we see employment going sideways and it starts to go down, and we have a recession. Same thing for the year 2000. Employment goes up and then starts to go sideways, and we have a recession. Same thing for 2008. It goes sideways for a while and the recession is there. And you can see that the longest recession seems to be the one on 2008. But the same thing is true for the crisis of the COVID crisis in 2020. You see the expansion of employment is going up, it goes sideways shortly, and then it tanks. Remember, people have to stay at home, a lot of people lost their jobs, and a lot of businesses have to close. So you can see the numbers went down. However, it went up, and once again, they're going sideways. They're slightly higher than they were before COVID. So that was the linear employment. Let's look at the percentage change by year. And here we have a more clear indication. You can see here that whenever the employment level crosses below the black line, we have a recession. You can see here, in 1980, it was just at the end of the recession. Same thing for 82. And we can see here, 90s, whenever this line goes below zero, we have a recession. Same thing for the year 2008, and the same thing for the crisis of COVID. Now, COVID was just a cliff. You can see it's going straight down on a straight line, and then it's going very rapidly up. It's the greatest expansion of employment that we have had. You can see it's a very alarming one. It goes over 10%, maybe 12%, And now the numbers are just about to touch the black line again. Touching the black line, if all the same equal, it means that we may be at the blink of recession, or recession may be around the corner. Another graph that I want to share with you guys, it is the personal savings rate, meaning how much each person has on average to spend on the economy, how much savings the American population has. Now in this graph, I see two things that I want to share with you guys. First is on the long term, you can look here between 1980 to the year 2005, that number has constantly going down very gradually, but yet going lower. Now, that number expanded tremendously on COVID, and that was because of the stimulus checks or the helicopter money sent to everyone around the globe, also in the US. You can see here the savings went up significantly. However, those savings are already down, and we are having the lowest mark of saving, not as low as 2008, but still very low savings. That means the final consumer, the person, individuals that are moving the economy, they do not have any money to pay for services or purchase any goods. One more thing I want to share with you on this graph is what happened after 2008. In the year 2008, the globe went into interest rates close to zero. We had a phase of low rates, meaning whenever you took a loan for a house or a mortgage or anything of that sort, you are paying very low interest rates. In the United States of America, that was 25 basis points, which means a quarter of 1%. That is very low rates, and the world has never seen anything like that before. And that's why this number of the personal savings is starting to go up after the crisis of 2008. And it went much higher in 2020 when the government started to give stimulus checks or helicopter money. So that savings went really high up. However, what also happened in 2020 is that interest rates start to go up. We no longer have interest rates near zero. Interest rates right now are very high, meaning it's going to be very difficult for someone to take a loan, buy a house, or pay for a mortgage because the maintenance of that debt is going to be very high. People are selling things in the US because they cannot make the payments for their mortgage. That, in my view, tells me that the savings number are not going to go up. And you can see that the personal savings are very low. Not as low as it was in 2008, but still very low. And interest rates going up, I don't see that number going up. Another graph that I think is very important and very alarming, at least in my view, it is the industrial production total index within the US. And you can see here from the year 1975, that is constantly going up. And whenever it goes sideways, we do have an expansion. To me, the most alarming is not the fact that it's going sideways now and may be signaling a possible recession, but the fact that if you look at the year 2008, when we had a recession, that was the peak of the industrial production within the US. Now, everything that goes up must go down, and people are asking themselves already around the globe if the US empire has come to its peak and now is on the verge of collapse. And that indicators back up that claim, because you can see here on the year 2008, the industrial production has peaked and has not been able to surpass that mark of 2008. Now it is going sideways, but still it is not higher than what was in 2008. And remember, once it starts to go sideways, we have a recession. That has been true for every single time in the past. Now we're going to be looking at the same graph, but this time the percentage change per year, not the linear growth, but how much it has changed year after year. And we can see here the same thing. Whenever those numbers go below zero, it has been the mark of recession. That was true in the 70s, it was true in the 80s, it remains true in the 90s, also remains true for the year 2000 and for the year 2008. And it is also true for the crisis of COVID in 2020. And we can see here that we're below zero and going sideways just below zero for a while, signaling a possible recession on the curve or around the corner. The graph that I'm sharing with you guys now requires some explanation. This is the LEI, the Leading Economic Index. This is a combination of 10 different indicators, and they use that combination to determine a recession. Now look at what happened on the year 2000. It went to minus 5%, and whenever it went to minus 5%, we had a recession. That was true for the year 2000, it was true for the year 2008, and look at how in the year 2006, it almost touched minus 5. However, it only went to minus 5 on the year 2008 when we had a recession. And then it has been up for the entirety of time and went again below 5% on the recession of COVID. Now, what is happening this time, it is a lot of confusion. We have a lot of uncertainty. The graphs and indicators of the past are not working this time, and that's why a lot of people are believing that we are out of the woods, meaning we do not have a risk of recession. This graph went below 5% on the year 2022. Yes, we did not have a recession. However, we did have a crash on price of stocks. Bitcoin, for instance, went from almost $70,000 to $15,800 in 2022. At the same time that this graph was again below 5%. Now look at this. It continues to be on the minus 5% mark. So either we are in a recession or the recession is just around the corner. Here's an indicator that is easy for you to verify. It is the Restaurant Performance Index. This measures how well bar and restaurants are performing, meaning how many people and how much money is being spent on bars and restaurants. Now, whenever you have money to spare, we all tend to go to a restaurant or to a bar. When those are not performing well, that means the population don't feel they have the money to spare on a bar, on a restaurant. That is, to me, one indicator that is really alarming. This indicator does not have the gray bars because this indicator is not by the National Bureau of Economic Research. This indicator is literally by the National Restaurant Association. However, it does coincide. You can see here on the year 2008, it crossed below the line of 100. Same thing for COVID. It crossed the line almost on a straight cliff. And you can see here for 2024, it is already below the black line, indicating a recession. To me, this is the most significant indicator, and it is also one that you can verify yourself. We all know someone who works in a restaurant or who owns a restaurant. I have already seen that here in Portugal. I have friends who own restaurants, and they are saying that the performance of this year is nothing compared to the performance they had last year. And here we have what I believe to be the most alarming of all graphs I'm going to share with you guys in this video. And that is the inversion of the curve, 10-year versus 3-month. And that is called the yield curve. That means there's more money to be made, more profit, more yield on a 3-month bond than there is on a 10-year. That means a loan for 3 months to the American government gives you more yield than a 10-year. That is normally a sign that the government is desperate for money. And we already know that the United States of America is spending $2.4 billion per day just for the maintenance of their debt. Whenever this graph goes below the black line, that means there's more yield to be made on a 3-month than on a 10-year. This has been the one indicator that has never failed before. You can see here, whenever the blue line crosses below the black line, that anticipates a recession. That was true for the recession of the 90s, it was true for the recession of the 2000 bubble, and it was true for the recession of 2008, and was also true for the recession of COVID. A lot of people believe that COVID caused a recession, but if you look at this graph, you can see that the recession was already in the making before COVID. The inversion of the curve has never gone this deep. This is the deepest that it has been and for the longest period. To me, this is the one graph that definitely foresees a recession. If we do not have a recession this time, it would be a miracle. I think this graph will remain true and we are at the blink of a recession. If you found this information relevant, please subscribe to the channel. That will help us to keep bringing valuable information and content to you guys. I know there's a lot of optimism. A lot of people in the US believe that the United States economy is really strong and resilient. However, numbers do not lie. You have seen how the industrial production in the US seems to have reached its cap. Now, to me, that is more concerning than a recession because everything that goes up must come down. And if the US industrial production came to a cap, that is bad news long-term for the US. Also, we have seen how savings have really diminished, and I do not see those numbers change. We also saw how people are not having enough money to go to restaurants. So despite all this optimism, to me, a recession is just around the corner. And if the recession is not there, we're going to have worse things to be concerned about, such as people not being able to increase their savings within the US. Those are concerning numbers. If a recession comes, there's going to be a correction and things may go up again. But if things continue moving sideways, I wonder how long the US can stand this going sideways, meaning a cap on the industrial production and people not having enough money to go to restaurants. Those are my points. Those are the things I want to share with you guys. Now, my question to you is, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the graphs that I shared with you guys? Please let me know that on the comments below. And please do not forget to like, subscribe, click the notification bell, but above it all, share this video with someone else who can benefit from this.